Hey everybody, welcome back to Winamac Attack Hockey for this week's NHL update. I am Dom the Bomb, joined alongside by Jake the Snake Armstrong. My friend, how are we doing?
I'm great. It's been a slow week of hockey, but there's always plenty to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, so let's not hesitate. First, we have the Boston Bruins running into some COVID protocol issues. What's going on over there with the Bruins?
So they've got some key players out on COVID protocol, one of those being David Pastrnak, who is just a goal scoring machine. It's a really tough loss to see him go, especially after his injury at the beginning of the season. Also, David Krejci, who is a big enforcer style player for them. So Trent Frederick has actually stepped up into that role. He's laying the body, he's getting in people's heads. He was all over Ovechkin last week, and he's just really taken over that enforcer style role that can get in the other team's head and give your team momentum. So they've got him stepping up, but you don't have a goal scorer that can replace David Pastrnak, so they need him back as soon as possible.
Yeah, especially with a division that competitive. They've dropped into fourth place in the standings. How crucial is this for them right now at this time?
It's a tough division. So you've got Buffalo, who's on a 13-game losing streak. They'll tell you firsthand how hard that division is. So Boston is they're up there. They've got some room to lose some games if they need to, and they can't go on a slump because it's a tough division and there's other teams that want that playoff spot.
All right, we'll see how that plays out. Let's jump into some of the injuries that have been going on around the league. And first, we have Evgeni Malkin for Pittsburgh dealing with some injuries of his own. So, how crucial is that to a Pittsburgh team that's been playing pretty well this year?
In terms of playing, it's a big loss. In terms of trading, it's an even bigger loss because ownership, although they want to keep Malkin and Letang and Crosby as their untouchables, this new management group, they're looking to get rid of Malkin to try to bring in some assets that can benefit the team in other ways because Malkin's not getting any younger and the team's playoff window is closing. So they're looking to get a deadline reward for him, which they can't do with that coming up and Malkin being injured. So that's a huge loss in the trading world and also on the ice, just having no one to replace Malkin. That's a big loss as well, although they still have Crosby there to hold the reins. Malkin is underrated because he's been sitting in Crosby's shadow, and I do think that there will be a void left by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so also for the New York Islanders, we talked about Anders Lee last week and his injury, and he has officially been ruled out for the season. So again, another team that's been playing really well, losing a key player. Jake, how do you think New York's going to respond?
It all depends on Matthew Bartzel. If Matthew Bartzel can just find a new teammate and build chemistry quick and keep his play up, then they'll be fine. But if he doesn't have any chemistry with who they pair him with and he can't get it going, then the team could see some trouble. So it really depends on Matthew Bartzel.
Mm-hmm. All right, another key player that has been injured and out for the season is Oskar Sundqvist. Jake, what kind of injury is he going through, and how's the team going to be impacted by that?
He tore his ACL, which is not a fun one to have as a player. I'm sure he is probably in a lot of pain, but the Blues are also in pain from all these injuries they've had this year. They are recently getting guys back like Jaden Schwartz, Tarasenko are back from injury, and they're starting to get their line chemistry back. And having Oskar Sundqvist, who's one of the hardest workers on the team, go, that's just a tough loss for them.
Yeah, again, another team that's hanging on to a playoff spot. They need all the help that they can get.
They really do.
So our last injury that is worth noting is Jack Johnson, who's been reported that he'll be out for the year as well. Jake, what do you think?
I think the press box is going to miss him. He is a healthy scratch a lot, but there's a reason that the Rangers signed him. They wanted that depth piece, so if they do need him in the lineup, he's not there now. So on a team fighting in that tough division in the East, that could be a huge loss for them if the time comes down in the stretch of the season that they do need him and he's not there. But time will tell with that.
Mm-hmm. So Jake, there's been a lot of injuries going around the league. Do you think it has anything to do with the shortened schedule and playing a bunch of games, back to back?
Yeah, the way the schedule is set up this year is you can play 4 games in 3 days, which just doesn't happen in a normal season where if you do happen to play a back to back, you're going to have a good 3 days off before you play again because there's just time. But in this shortened year where they want to play all these games in a short span to reduce any COVID breakouts, you do have to play a long schedule with frequent games, and because they spend a lot of time on the road, they're away from their normal training staff for a long time. Yes, they have their guys on the road, but you're going to have more trainers in your home arena, and they're missing those for long stretches where they're really getting some wear and tear on their muscles.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, for some better news, we've had a trade go down this past week. It wasn't necessarily what you would call a blockbuster, but Jake, what was this trade, and do you think it's going to open the door for some more in the future?
So Buffalo was looking to get rid of goaltender Jonas Johansen, and there were some other teams interested. I'm not sure why because I haven't heard good things about him. But Buffalo trades Jonas Johansen to Colorado, who is currently sitting on Philip Grubauer as their starting goalie. So I'm not sure if they are just wanting some depth behind him. But John Vogel, who works with the Buffalo Sabres, said, I can say without hesitation that the Avs are getting the worst goalie I've ever seen during my 19 seasons covering the Sabres. He doesn't stop pucks in practice or games. So for someone who works with the Buffalo Sabres, for him to say that this is the worst he's seen a lot of bad players. So
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that Colorado got a good player here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for Colorado, though, you give up a six-round pick. You're not really losing a lot of value there, especially if this guy comes up to be a decent backup goalie for you.
Yeah, that could happen. We've seen weirder things in the NHL. They didn't pay a lot, but there should be some bigger moves coming by Colorado as we get to the deadline.
Mm-hmm. And maybe some other teams making that playoff push, too.
Exactly.
All right, so speaking of Buffalo, they fired their head coach this week, and Ralph Kruger. Jake, how do you think the team is going to respond, and do we know anything about a new coach yet?
So the team is not responding well. They're still losing. Coaching change can't stop the bleeding, and it's been a bad year for Buffalo in that tough division.
Yeah, I know that Taylor Hall came out and kind of put some of the blame on him, saying that just hasn't been performing well, and he kind of placed the blame on the players rather than his head coach, which was pretty humble. But we'll see how they respond, whether that comes at this season or next season or who knows when.
Yeah, you mentioned Taylor Hall, who they were working on a contract extension with, and since this long losing streak, those discussions completely stopped.
That'll be interesting to see where he ends up and if Buffalo decides to keep him.
Right, right.
All right, so a lot of the hockey community has heard about the passing of Tamir. Uh, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but so he was a young player, 19 years old, over in a Russian hockey league, and he was hit with a puck in the temple on an innocent clearing attempt. There was no malice at all, and unfortunately, from his injuries, he passed away. He was in the hospital for a couple of days, but just the hockey community, again, we mourn that death, and you hate to see stuff like that happen. Jake, with that, do you think that the league or any of the hockey leagues are going to do anything about safety when it comes to helmets, or do you think it was just one of them plays that's like there's nothing you can do about it?
I don't think the league is going to really look into safety because it was just a very innocent play. It was chipping the puck in the zone. On the other hand, I'm not sure what the manufacturer of the helmet was, but I think around the hockey industry, all hockey safety gear companies are going to look into their gear and say, hey, what happened here? Why did this happen? Why did the helmet not protect him?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll have to keep our eyes out to see if there are any stories that come out about some of the equipment and how the league might handle this.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and move into the standings, which in previous videos, if I did not make it clear, standings we do from Saturday evening. Alright, so let's start in the Central. The Tampa Bay Lightning have a nice little lead going on with 46 points, and then Carolina is in third place with 42, which was pretty interesting because Florida has just been on a roll and have passed them in the standings there at 44. And the Hawks barely hold on in fourth place. Over in the East, the Capitals are playing absolutely great hockey. They lead with 44 points, followed by the New York Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And as we mentioned earlier, Boston has dropped to fourth as they continue to try to battle it out over there in their division. Alright, so then over in the West, the Vegas Golden Knights are just having a blast as they lead it, with the Avalanche and Wild following fairly closely, and the Blues have a pretty decent lead over the Kings to maintain that fourth place spot. And then in the North, with the Canadian division, the Toronto Maple Leafs have the lead, but they are tied with Edmonton. So the Oilers have come back to take this dominant team in Toronto, and they've managed to tie them. So that division's getting really interesting, especially because Winnipeg has 38 points and Montreal is in fourth with 35. But also, the Vancouver Canucks are a point out of a playoff spot. Jake, what do you think? What is the biggest surprise of the week when it comes to standings for you?
I think the biggest surprise is that North Division, because those teams are constantly trading places and competing differently. The Maple Leafs are slumping right now, but last week they were on a hot streak, and the Jets are up there, the Oilers are up there, Vancouver's coming back up when we thought that they were completely out of it already. So that division, you just never know who's going to be on top, and it's just fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so now that we've talked about the standings, let's jump into our key players. Jake, would you like to go first?
I would love to. For the Capitals, Tom Wilson is back from his 7-game suspension. For the locker room chemistry, that's huge to a Capitals team that's already in the lead in their division. He's got 7 goals and 18 points in 22 games this year, so he's not quite a point per game, but that's not really the role he plays. He's there to keep guys off of Ovechkin. I mentioned earlier that Trent Frederick was harassing Ovechkin last week. If Tom Wilson's there, Trent Frederick leaves the game in a body bag because that's just not going to happen. Tom Wilson's going to step up for his teammates, and, 18 points in 22 games is not bad. He can score, too.
Yeah, he's been a nice threat for Washington on, like you said, both sides of the ice, offensively, defensively, and he's just a great teammate to his to his teammates. So,
yeah, big locker room guy.
Mm-hmm. All right, do you have anyone else, or is that your only player to watch for the week?
That is my only player to watch this week. It seems like everybody else is injured.
All right, well then I also only have one guy to watch for this week, and that is Mikko Rantanen for the Colorado Avalanche. This man has been heating up. Everyone talks about Nathan MacKinnon and how powerful the offense is, but Rantanen's just kind of been on the down low recently, but I think he's going to be hard to ignore here because he has 9 points in his last 4 games, and if you look at the highlight reel in the past week, he's on there a couple times. He's been making some spectacular plays and not only helping his team offensively, but defensively too, as he has a plus 11 overall plus or minus rating. So I think this guy is going to be a key element in Colorado's push for the playoffs and what they hope to be a deep playoff run. All right, so Jake, any other thoughts before we wrap it up for this week?
Just one last touch up on that Colorado team. They have had a good team for a few years now, and this year, just looking at their roster, it's so deep. If you're going to pick a playoff favorite, they have to be up there for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that with some of the betting charts that they are like the 3rd best team to win the cup right now. So that's, like you said, they've got a really good team and a lot of depth. So we'll have to see how that plays out as we near playoff time.